I was trying to shake off my dueling rust a bit at the Pontiff Arena, and started to get a little bit bored of my weapons, so I digged around in my inventory to see if I had something interesting in there. Corvian Greatknife caught my eye since I have never seen anyone use this weapon against me, so I decided to toy around with it a bit to see if I like it. This weapon is dropped by Corvians that wield it at the Road of Sacrifices. It's the longest of all the daggers in the game, and since it is a dagger, it also has a sweet critical multiplier. Corvian Greatknife with refined infusion and used on 40/40 build has something around 280 AR, because it only reaches double D scaling. So if you really want to min-max the fuck out of this thing, I would suggest getting the minimum dex and strength requirements and infusing it with raw, which leaves the weapon with around 230 AR. But you can get a strong buff for it, and you will still be left with some leftover points to use, if you're trying to reach the solo level 120 PvP meta. You don't even need heavy investment in endurance to keep aggressive, because the weapon uses very little stamina for its attacks, so that leaves even more levels to use somewhere else. The greatest strength of this weapon is definitely its superb attack and recovery speed and long-range pokes when two-handed. Seriously, it has deceptively long range, which catches a lot of people off guard and lets you space out most of the smaller weapons in the game. At its best when using this weapon, you're spacing out your opponent and punishing their swings with quick pokes that at first seem to deal shit damage, but after a while your opponent finds themselves full of holes, when all those little pokes pile up to a great damage. One really great thing about this weapon is that both its roll attack and the first two-handed R1 are those extremely fast long-range pokes. This makes rolling R1 to R1 combo, which is a rather rare thing for weapons in Dark Souls 3. And if the opponent panics and starts to roll away, you can proceed to roll catch them for days. For days! I'm not kidding, this is one of the best roll catching weapons in the game. At least in terms of keeping the loop going. Now, in case you need to R1 spam. Come on, we all do it every now and then to feel truly alive. This weapon also has stat covered, and if the opponent makes the decision to keep rolling into you, you can keep this going for a while and be unchallenged. Well, some hyper armor weapons might get lucky and poise through some hits, but usually you're safe until they back off. Kick is also good to remember when using this weapon, since all the R1 attacks after successful kick stagger always result to instability hit for extra damage. Heavy attacks of this weapon are sadly rather useless, at least I haven't found a lot of use for those other than trying to swag out every now and then with the R2 bait. When it comes to the weapon art of Corvian Greatknife, it's called the blind spot. The attack is this sideways stab that can deal good damage through shields, and actually deals relatively high damage compared to other attacks of this weapon. At first I wasn't really sure if this attack is gonna be good for anything, since the speed of it is really awkward, but I found some decent uses for it. The thing is, as far as I know, this attack cannot be parried, so what I like to do is that when I'm pressuring people from close range, I mix this in there to deal some extra damage if they decide to block or parry. Some people might argue that punishing parries with a backstab would be a better idea, and you should listen to those people, since they are probably right. Keep in mind, however, that blind spot to R1 does combo, and people tend to roll away after taking this chunk of damage, so you can start the roll catch loop from there as well. Another use for the blind spot actually works mainly because of its awkward timing most of the time. When I see players who like to do this thing where they run around like headless chicken and come in with a random running attack when you decide to do something, I space myself appropriately and use the blind spot. If you're lucky enough, once they see you start the attack they try to swoop in to punish you. But because of the awkward timing that the attack has, it can hit them in the face before the running attack lands. This has worked for me way more times than it should, so there has to be some magic about the awkward attack speed in there. You can also catch people rolling to your left at times with the blind spot, but it's also good to keep in mind that the blind spot attack has rather fucked up hitbox, so you can unfortunately find yourself whiffing it on opponents that are hugging you or slightly on your right, so you might need to unlock and target it manually to land hits with it on certain situations. Some people might argue that Gotthard's twin swords, for example, is a lot stronger for this weapon's main feat, which is the fast pokes, of course. And you should listen to those people, because they are probably right. But then again, why would you want Gotthard when you can get rock hard? While Gotthard's twin swords are undeniably better, Corvian Greatknife has faster recovery speed and smaller stamina consumption, and it also has the fast poking option even without rolling, and is better for roll catching. One has to ask, however, does any of this matter when one poke of Gotthard's can deal as much damage as 4 attacks from Corvian? If you are good at picking your times to attack and handle your spacing, this weapon can still be pretty goddamn good, and based on my experiences it's pretty much all fun and games. Until this guy shows up. The infamous Carthus curved sword is like the antidote against this weapon, since it's just the right range to beat out Corvian's poke range, and since Corvian Greatknife cannot really afford to trade with anything, you can probably guess how that usually ends up. Actually, playing successfully with Corvian Greatknife often tends to piss people the fuck off, and I've found many of my opponents switching to Carthus curved sword after getting outplayed, and often proceeded to carve me like a fucking cake. In the end, Corvian Greatknife is really honest weapon, and every victory with it feels satisfying and well earned, without it being insanely crappy either. Thank you so much everyone for watching, and I will leave you with a couple of fights that highlight the strengths of this weapon. Take care.